60% of Americans favor sending troops to defend Taiwan. Iran's president, Saudi Crown Prince speak for the first time since diplomatic ties restored. Israel's new war cabinet vows to wipe Hamas off the earth. Germany clears Israel's use of 2 Heron TP combat drones. Most Japanese firms expect China's economic slowdown to persist into 2025. Social media is awash in misinformation about Israel-Gaza war. China's Geely and Malaysia's Proton consider EV plant in Thailand. Australia and Indonesia might bid for the 2034 World Cup jointly.
Hello, I'm CJ. Thank you for joining us on Funday News. It is Friday, October 30th, and here are your top stories. Taiwan News reported in a survey published by the non-profit non-partisan Eurasia Group Foundation, EGF, on Wednesday, October 11th, titled Order and Disorder, Americans were asked if China and Taiwan go to war, considering the high cost and likely casualties, do you think the United States should commit American service members to help defend Taiwan? Despite the high potential price of a conflict with China, 60% of respondents supported military intervention to protect Taiwan, while 40% opposed it.
The survey showed among Democrats, 17% strongly supported intervention, 45% somewhat supported it, 26% somewhat opposed it, and 12% strongly opposed it. For Republicans, the percentage of strongly supporting intervention was significantly higher, at 24%, while independents had the highest percentage of strongly opposing intervention at 14%. More specifically, 18% strongly supported intervention and 42% somewhat supported intervention, while 27% were somewhat opposed, and 13% were strongly opposed.
Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi and Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman discussed the Palestinian-Israeli conflict on Wednesday in the first telephone call between the two leaders since the China brokered a deal between Tehran and Riyadh to resume ties. Iranian state media said Raisi and the Saudi Crown Prince discussed the need to end war crimes against Palestine.
Saudi state news agency SPA said the Saudi Crown Prince reiterated Saudi Arabia's rejection of targeting civilians in any way. SPA added the Saudi Crown Prince affirmed that the kingdom is making all possible efforts in communicating with all international and regional parties to stop the ongoing escalation. Saudi Arabia and Iran agreed to resume ties in March after 7 years of hostility, which had threatened stability and security in the Gulf and helped fuel conflicts in the Middle East, from Yemen to Syria.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu forged an emergency government on Wednesday to direct war against Hamas, and his defense minister vowed to wipe the Palestinian militant group off the face of the earth over its deadly weekend attack. In a joint statement, Netanyahu and former defense chief and centrist opposition party leader Benny Gantz said they had agreed to form an emergency government comprising the two leaders and defense minister Yoav Gallant.
Netanyahu said later in televised remarks they had put aside their differences, because the fate of our state is on the line. Netanyahu said alongside Gantz and Gallant, "We are fighting a cruel enemy, worse than ISIS," comparing the group's attack with brutal killings carried out by Islamic State. Gallant, the defense minister, said, "We will wipe this thing called Hamas, ISIS Gaza, off the face of the earth. It will cease to exist." Opposition leader Yair Lapid was not expected to join the emergency government at this stage.
A defense source told Reuters on Wednesday Germany has given Israel the go-ahead to use 2 Heron TP combat drones in its counterattack against Palestinian Islamist group Hamas, confirming a report by Spiegel magazine. The source said Germany has leased 5 of these drones from Israel's arms maker IAI, with 2 of them still deployed in Israel for training German drone pilots. Spiegel reported German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius on Wednesday approved a request by Israel to use the drones.
The defense source said Israel had also asked Germany whether it could provide flak jackets, medical equipment and treatment for wounded people in German hospitals. The Israeli military said its death toll rose to 1,200 on Wednesday with over 2,700 wounded, from Hamas militants' hours-long rampage after breaching the fence enclosing Gaza on Saturday. Gaza's health ministry said Israeli reprisal strikes on blockaded Gaza have killed 1,100 people and wounded 5,339.
According to a Reuters monthly poll, most Japanese companies expect a slowdown in China's economy to persist into 2025, with nearly two-thirds of firms that operate there looking to shift some production elsewhere in search of sales in other markets. Of 502 major Japanese companies surveyed by Reuters, 55% said they expected the slowdown in China to continue into 2025, with 70% predicting weaker economic growth to persist until the end of 2024. Only 5% say they expected a rebound by the end of the first quarter next year.
A representative from a transport company said, on condition the company was not identified, cargo shipments are stagnant, and it's difficult for cargo handlers to take measures to tackle that. China is Japan's biggest trading partner. The value of that cross-border economic activity jumped 14% to 43.8 trillion yen, $294 billion, last year. Japanese companies also operate from more than 31,000 locations in the country. Some 45% of the firms that responded to the survey said the slowdown in China had affected their businesses.
While Twitter has always struggled with combating misinformation about major news events, it was still the go-to place to find out what's happening in the world. But the Israel-Hamas war has underscored how the platform now transformed into X has become not only unreliable, but it's actively promoting falsehoods. Experts say that under Elon Musk, the platform has deteriorated to the point that it's not just failing to clamp down on misinformation, but is favoring posts by accounts that pay for its blue-check subscription service, regardless of who runs them.
The European Union's digital enforcer wrote to Musk about misinformation and potentially illegal content on X, in what's shaping up to be one of the first major tests for the 27-nation bloc's new digital rules. He later sent a toned-down version of the letter to Mark Zuckerberg of Meta, Facebook and Instagram. Among the fabrications are false claims that a top Israeli commander was kidnapped, a doctored White House memo purporting to show U.S. President Joe Biden announcing billions in aid for Israel.
Thai Prime Minister Srettha Thavisin said on Wednesday, Malaysia's national car maker Proton and its Chinese partner Geely are considering setting up a plant in Thailand to produce electric vehicles. Srettha said, after talks with Malaysian leader Anwar Ibrahim, that the two sides will hold a meeting to identify the next step and move forward quickly. Geely holds a 49.9% stake in Proton, which is owned by local conglomerate DRB Hycom Berhad. The Chinese carmaker's entry into Proton in 2017 has given it a foothold in Southeast Asia.
DRB Hycom and Geely earlier Wednesday formalized a deal to develop an automotive hub in Tanjung Malam in central Perak State, in which Geely is expected to invest 10 billion ringgit, $2.1 billion. Srettha, who took office last month, arrived earlier Wednesday in Malaysia as part of a regional tour to woo investment. He was in Hong Kong and Brunei earlier and will fly to Singapore on Thursday. Srettha said he and Anwar also discussed a long-running Muslim separatist insurgency in southern Thailand.
Soccer officials in Australia and Indonesia have floated the idea of teaming up in a bid to rival Saudi Arabia for the hosting rights to the Men's World Cup in 2034. The Sydney Morning Herald reported comments Wednesday from Indonesia Soccer Federation President Erick Thohir about ongoing talks that could also include Malaysia and Singapore in a possible bid. Any opponent to Saudi Arabia in the 2034 World Cup contest has to express official interest by October 31st. FIFA set a deadline of November 30th to file a formal bidding agreement.
Only members of the Asia and Oceania soccer bodies can apply to host the 2034 World Cup because the United States, Canada and Mexico will host the 2026 edition and 6 FIFA members from Europe, Africa and South America have joined for the 2030 tournament. Within hours of FIFA opening the 2034 contest a week ago, the Saudi Arabian Soccer Federation pledged to bid, and Asian Football Confederation President Sheikh Salman bin Ibrahim Al Khalifa said there was united support for it.
The answer for yesterday was A, averting. There's no way of averting this crisis. Did you answer correctly? Now let's delve into the news of Iran's president and Saudi crown prince speak for the first time since diplomatic ties restored. Reiterate, 重申，反复地说, it should be reiterated that under no circumstances should we compromise with terrorism. Escalation, 激增或升级. Price escalation in building materials heavily impacted the housing market. Hostility, 敌意. Hostilities between the two countries were suspended during the talks. Next, we have a multiple choice question for everyone to practice. Which answer would you choose? You can write your answer in the comment section. The correct answer will be announced tomorrow. And that's all for today's Funday News. Be sure to tune into Funday News from Monday to Friday and click the link below to join Funday for free. I'm CJ, your host, and I'll see you next time.